When we launch Corel Painter Essentials 7 for the first time, we're going to see the welcome screen here. This contains some handy shortcuts that'll help you get started, as well as some brushes that you can purchase and other information to help you learn Corel Painter. We have all these tabs over here on the left. Right now we're in Documents, so here we can create a new document quickly, or we can quickly open a document, and we can even select from a list of recent documents. There are even some document templates that are set to common print and frame sizes. If we move over to the Layouts tab, here's where we can set some different layouts to arrange Corel Painter to fit better on certain types of screens. For example, if you're using a laptop, you may want to use the laptop layout, or if you're left or right-handed, this may rearrange things to make it easier to work with. I'm going to go to What's New, and here under What's New we can see what Corel Painter is offering currently. There are different brush packs you can purchase and various tutorials. Beneath that we have Tutorials, which has even more tutorials. And then beneath that we have Upgrade, and here's where you can upgrade to the full version of Corel Painter, which unlocks more features and brushes. Beneath that we have Get More, and here's where we can get even more brushes. And then at the very bottom we have a few buttons. We can search for all new brush packs, we can get tech support, and if it weren't clear enough where to get brushes, you can get more brushes here as well. There's Corel Painter on Instagram, and here's a link to some webinars. If we move on up to the top right of this panel, we have a gear icon, and we can use this to disable the welcome screen. If we uncheck this, then it won't show on startup. And then if we want to close the welcome panel, then we can click on this X here in the top right corner. Should you want the welcome menu to return, you can always go to Help, and then Welcome. So now let's go ahead and dive into some things we can do in Corel Painter. In order to make a painting, we're going to need a canvas. So let's go to File, and then New. Now here we have the New Image dialog, and we can use this to create a new image. We can give our image a name, and then we can choose canvas presets, as well as the width, height, and resolution of our canvas. There are also options to change the canvas color and add texture to the canvas, but we'll come back to some of this more detailed stuff in a bit. If you want to learn more about canvas size as it relates to digital art and which canvas size is best for digital art, I'll link you to a reference video you can watch. So for now, we'll just stick with the default settings here, 1600 by 900 pixels, and we'll click on OK. Our new canvas appears here inside of our user interface. You can imagine that this is like your desk. Your canvas or your piece of paper is on your desk, and then you have your colored paints which you can choose from. You have all of your tools over here that you can use to create art. You have some different options for your tools up here at the top, and then you have some different palettes for specialty things and choosing color over here on the right. There are also menus up here at the top that contain all of the commands that are available here in Corel Painter Essentials, but we'll be going through all of this stuff little by little to make sense of it all. Now because this is sort of like your desk, you can take your canvas and move it around your desk. You could choose the grabber tool here, and you could press down with your pen or click with your mouse, and you can drag to move your piece of paper or your canvas around. If you don't want your colors to be over here, you can drag those over to the other side. You could move this down or to the other side, or really rearrange this however you like. I like to have my color over here and my panels here, and I like to have my toolbox over here on the left. You can also bring your canvas closer to you or push it farther away. We can do that by selecting the Magnifier Tool. And with this tool selected, we can drag to zoom in. I'm dragging to the right now to zoom in, or I can drag to the left to zoom out. So we're not changing the size of the canvas, we're changing our distance to it. You can also click to zoom in, or tap to zoom in, and you can hold Alt on your keyboard to zoom out by clicking and tapping. Up here in the top we have the Properties bar, and this gives us access to some different properties and features of this tool. So right now we can see our zoom level, and we could change this here using the slider if we wanted to. You could dial in a specific zoom level if you like by just typing in a number here. Next to that we can center the image to center it on our screen. We can fit it to the screen, which expands it to completely fill your screen. And then we have 100%, which is going to shrink it down to 100% zoom. Next to that we have rotation angle, and we can rotate our canvas as well. We could use this slider to rotate it like so, or if we want to actually grab it and rotate it, we can select the rotation tool, and then you can just drag the canvas up or down to rotate it around. Now if you want to reset the rotation angle, you can go up to the Properties bar and you can click on Reset Rotation Angle. That puts the canvas back to its upright position. Now there are also keyboard shortcuts to get to all of these tools. If you want to be able to pan your page no matter what tool you're using, you can always hold down Spacebar, and then you'll be able to pan your page or move it around the canvas. If you hit E on your keyboard, that'll switch to the Rotate tool at any time, and you can see it switches here in the toolbar. You can hit G to go back to Grabber, and you can hit M on your keyboard to go to the Magnifier Tool. Another way that you can zoom in and out and manipulate your canvas is to go to the Window menu, and then we'll open the Navigator. We'll move this over here so we can see it. I'll just paint an arrow here for reference so we know which way is up. We could use this to rotate the canvas. We can zoom the canvas using this slider here, or we could click these buttons to zoom in and zoom out incrementally. We can also see some information about our canvas. And if we zoom in really close here, we get this red box, which shows us where we're viewing on the screen. So this red box shows basically the whole viewable area of our canvas on our screen. And we can drag that around to move to different parts of our canvas. You can double click on the Navigator tab to collapse it. So if you wanted to put it kind of up out of the way, you could do that and then just use it whenever you want. Or if you want to show and hide it, you can go to the Window menu and there's a shortcut for it, which is Control-7, or you could just click to uncheck it here. So now that we know how to move our canvas around, let's take a look at how to apply some paint to our canvas. To do that, we'll select the brush tool, and anytime you want to be able to paint on your canvas, you need to have the brush tool selected. Once you've selected the brush tool, directly above that is your brush selector, and here's where you can select the type of brush that you want to paint with. We have all of our categories over here on the left, and these are the different types of brushes. You might have chalk and pastels, or you might have brushes that put down pencil, or brushes that put down paint. You might have specialty brushes that do special effects. And then within each of these categories, you have what are called brush variants, and these are the different types of brushes in that category, and they give you a wide range of looks. All these brushes will be similar in that they're all blender brushes, but you may find that other categories have media-specific brushes, such as watercolor or acrylic. The one cool thing about digital painting is that you can mix together a lot of these different types of brushes, so you're not limited to only using watercolor brushes for a watercolor painting. You could put oil on top of watercolor and put pencil on top of that if you want to. So there are some brushes that are not going to add paint, such as these blenders. So if I try to blend on a white canvas, I'm not going to get anything. So let's start up at the top. Let's choose acrylics and oils for our category. And let's choose opaque acrylic for our variant. Now if you're using a mouse, you can just paint with your mouse, and you should be able to click your mouse button down and then move the mouse around to draw and paint. If nothing is happening, make sure that you have a brush selected that can add paint. You'll also want to make sure that you don't have white selected because you can't paint white on white. And if you're using a drawing tablet and the drawing tablet isn't working, I recommend checking out some of my troubleshooting videos for the various types of drawing tablets. But you could also go to the Edit menu, Preferences, and then look under Tablet. And if you're using a Wacom tablet, choose WinTab. If you're using a non-Wacom brand tablet, WinTab might work as well. But if you're using something like a Microsoft device such as a Surface Pro, you may want to choose a real-time stylus. And then in order to apply these changes, you need to restart Corel Painter Essentials, which means you need to close and reopen it. Now, if your drawing tablet supports multi-touch, you can also use multi-touch to zoom in and out and rotate your canvas. You may want to play with these two settings if your multi-touch isn't working. If your tablet supports multi-touch, you can use 2 fingers to pan your page around. You can also pinch your fingers together to zoom out, or move 2 fingers apart to zoom in. And you can rotate your page with 2 fingers to change the angle of your canvas. And then to reset your canvas, just double tap with 2 fingers. So assuming your drawing tablet is working correctly, we can go ahead and make some test strokes now. Now if I press down with my pen and I draw, I'm going to make a brush stroke. And depending on the brush you have selected, the paint may run out eventually, or it may just keep going on forever. This brush will just keep adding paint forever. I could make individual brush strokes if I like, but that's just the way this particular brush works. If I want to clear out my brush strokes, one thing I can do is perform an undo. There's a shortcut for that up here in the Properties bar, and each time I click on that, I can undo the previous brush stroke. There is a limit to how many undos you can do, so eventually, if you do 32 undos, you won't be able to do any more. You can also do redos and bring those brush strokes back. So that's one way to clear out your canvas, but if you can't do any more than 32 undos and you've done more than 32 brush strokes, then how do you clear your canvas? I'll go ahead and put something on my canvas here, and then I can go to Select, I'll choose All, and then I'll hit backspace on my keyboard to clear out all of the paint that I put down. Now if you're using a drawing tablet, you have pen pressure that you can utilize, so I can press down lightly to get a thin line, or I can start pressing harder to make my line thicker. So I can have a thick line or a thin line and go in between very easily. I can even taper off my brush strokes. If you look in your Wacom tablet properties, you do have some control over that pen pressure setting. Here I can set my tip feel to soft or firm depending on how hard I press. I have mine set a notch toward firm because I tend to press harder. If you tend to press lighter when you paint, then you'd want to set that towards soft. You can test your pressure by pressing down on this window here. So it should be easy enough to reach maximum, but then also use light pressure to get that lower range. You can also calibrate brushes from within Corel Painter by going to the Edit menu, Preferences, and then Brush Tracking. And here you can actually draw a mark on this scratch pad using heavy or light pressure or everything in between to automatically calibrate that particular brush. You can also set a custom pressure curve here as well. And you can set a custom pressure curve per brush variant, so you can have each brush perform differently as far as pressure is concerned. I'll go ahead and click on OK to apply that change. And now this brush should respond a little bit better to the type of pressure that I use. The Wacom control panel setting is a global setting that's going to affect all brushes, whereas when you're calibrating brushes in Painter, you're doing it for each individual brush, or just the brushes that need it. While we're in the Wacom tablet properties, we can also take a look at our Express keys. We can use the Express keys for navigation. So for example, I could program specific Express keys to zoom in and out, or your tablet might even have a touch wheel like the Wacom Express key remote does, where you can use the touch wheel to zoom in and out. If you're interested in learning more about using your Wacom tablet to control Corel Painter, I'll link you to a reference video about that. I'm going to go ahead and clear out these brush strokes again. This time I'm going to use my keyboard to perform a shortcut. I'm going to do Control A to select all, and then just hit backspace to clear out that layer. So at this point you should be able to make some marks on your canvas and we can move on to look at some other stuff. I will come back to the brush tool and explain the more advanced settings and how to actually use it for painting in just a bit. Next I want to move on to discuss document view modes. If we go to the window menu, right now we're using single document view, but if you wanted to have multiple canvases up in separate windows, you could uncheck that, and then you can put Corel Painter into a window. And then if you wanted to, you could have several different canvases open at once. If you want to put it back into single document view, just maximize the window, or you could go to the window menu and you could choose single document view. I don't usually have multiple canvases up at once, but I do work between multiple canvases, so single document view works fine for me. There's also presentation mode, which you can access by pressing the F11 key. You're presented with this warning dialog that says you're about to switch to presentation mode. To exit, press F11 again. If you don't want to see this message every time, you can disable it with this button here. But let's click on OK, and you can see that some of the top menu bars go away. And so you have just a little bit more room for your user interface and your canvas here in Corel Painter. And then if I want to exit out of this mode, I'll just hit F11 again. That brings back that top menu bar. Now there is another way to kind of declutter your interface, and that is to hit Tab. When you hit Tab, your panels will go away. Your color picker will still be there, but if I hit Tab again, those panels come back. It also shows and hides the property bar, so you get a little bit more room to paint, and it removes some of those distractions. Now you can also hit Shift Tab, and when you do that, you're only going to hide these extra panels over here on the right. Shift Tab brings those back. Now let's move on to discuss these palettes in more detail. These palettes are just little windows that contain features, or maybe things like your color mixer or your color sets, which are little wells of paint. You can double click on the name here to condense down the panel. You can move between the different panels in the group here by clicking on their names. You can drag by the top bar here to move the panel around. I'll show the layers here, and down at the bottom of the panel, if you see 3 dots, you can expand or contract the panel to make it larger or smaller. Just as well, we can move the toolbar. We could take that and drag it around. That's a panel as well. And we can drag panels over to the side, and if you see a blue bar, that means you can dock it. So if I take my window and I kind of drag it around, you can see that this panel is docked, but these panels are not. And if I go ahead and move around the Corel Painter application window, you can see what's fixed and what is not. Now, if you're working on a multi-monitor setup, some of your panels may end up off screen for one reason or another. So if for some reason a panel's not showing, let's say photo painting here, and I click on it, it could be off screen where you can't reach it. I have a reference video you can watch that'll show you how to get those panels back on screen, but one thing you could do is just restore your layout here. You can also drag panels to separate them. So I can drag the mixer out here, I could drag the color set out here. If I wanted to group them back together, I can drag, and that blue line shows me where it's going to insert. I can insert it above or below, or I can even put some things next to each other. For example, I could have layers next to mixer if I wanted to. We'll go ahead and move the mixer back out. And let's just put these back where they go. Now once you start customizing these things, you might worry that you're going to mess them up. If that happens and all your panels are messed up, you can always go to the window menu, then you can go to layouts, and here you can choose one of these default layouts, and that'll put everything back to its default. You can also save your own layouts, but we'll come back to that in a bit.